Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Freymuller. Welcome back to The Knot. Shelly just informed me that this is our 40th show, so apparently we talk quite a bit. So we're here doing the he said, she said portion of the show, and we're going to talk about stress. Got my Wibby ready? Let's go.
Yes,
Let's be stressed.
Let's do it. Let's not be stressed.
So it goes back to the same thing every time, right? It goes back to self-worth, self-confidence, your outlook on life, everything. If it's change or stressors or whatnot. But it does. It builds. And we talked a bunch of different times on different segments of this show about how we can sit here in our little, our black chairs, all comfortable with little waters here, and talk all about life and how we handle it. And that's not always how it goes.
Sure.
But knowing when to reel it back in, and understanding that stress can be from any job. And a lot of people, this isn't a competition. Trauma, stress, any of those things. It's not a competition with people. It's how you look at it and how it affects you and how different things in life affect you. And one of the things I see, and I hear now more than ever since we've been doing this, is that a lot of times people compare. Well, that's not really that big a deal. Well, yeah, it is. To me, it is. And that's something you should, I wanted to say should never do, but you really try not to do,
Right.
Because you don't want to compare and you don't want to minimize somebody's, issue or concern or stressor or whatever it is, because to them it's a big deal. So, be there for them and treat it as such. Don't minimize it, disregard it. I'm a school teacher versus, somebody in a war.
Right.
Granted, those are two different levels or, amounts of stress,
Right.
but still to those two different people, it could affect them the same way.
From their personal perspective.
Absolutely.
If that's their highest level of stress
Right.
for that day, that week,
Right.
that whatever.
They don't have tools in the
that's their
toolbox.
highest level.
Exactly.
That's it.
And that's the point to this, is that, stress affects all of us. It's not a competition. And the red flags come from it. If you don't deal with it, it builds up.
Right.
Somebody told me a long time ago, you got to do your dirty laundry. And what that means to me is dealing with your stress as it comes up. Right?
Having the awareness, because some people, like you just said, knowing, right? And some people don't know. They're like, okay, this is just a regular day, and they do their thing, and they're frustrated, and they snap at people, and they go home and they're frustrated,
Yeah.
and then they wake up and they're like, oh, great, I got to go to work again. That's stress. But they just see it as like, okay, this is my normal life. This
Yeah.
is what I do because I got to get my paycheck and I got to pay the bills and I got to do this and I got to get my my health insurance.
Yeah.
And so they normalize just this low level of stress, whether it's low, but for some people, if you're like, in a crisis situation, it's high, obviously.
Right.
But that low level of stress, which is just kind of like static background noise, maybe it's at a 4, maybe you wake up at a 4 and then you go to work and you're at a 6.
But why? Why would you ever wake up with any stress?
Because that's what people, if they choose to stay in a situation that is stressful on the daily, then, that's where they are.
And it's still, though, choosing the situation that causes stress is one part of the issue,
One part
a
of it.
symptom. But, having the stress affect you in the first place is really the
Second.
issue.
Yes, absolutely.
The why goes back to,
Yes.
hey, man, here's how I'm going to deal with it, and here's going to be my outlook on it, and the outside things in my life aren't going to affect my mood, and it's not going to affect my stress level.
Right.
And wait a second, body, when you're stressed, your stomach's all crunched up, and your heart might be racing. You're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's slow this down.
Yeah, let's breathe.
Go back into your adult mind,
Yes.
right? And be like, okay, what's really going on here?
Right.
Let's deal with it. Why am I freaking out? Granted, again, we don't always have the tools to do that.
We don't.
But hopefully somebody will catch it, or you'll catch it yourself and be like, all right, let's
Yeah.
slow the roll, sit back and start asking ourselves, why do we feel like this?
Sure.
And then correct it.
Sure.
The negative outcomes of stress can be physical, right? Like you can have heart disease and,
They are
and not
physical.
feel well, and
Yes.
have your heart racing all the time.
Sure.
And the level of stress in your life affects everything.
Anxiety, depression, your
Yeah.
ability to function and
Heck
cope,
yeah.
your ability to perform on the job,
Yeah.
your relationships with family. I mean,
Yeah.
it's pervasive.
I talked to a buddy of mine. He's a fighter pilot, right? And he told me that. He goes, we really, really try to manage our stress the best we can. Like they have, PTSD meetings before they go out on a mission or whatever. And he said, we do our best to have tools to manage stress. in the cockpit of a plane, right? Like, think of that, right? Like,
Right.
you got to go to the bathroom. That's a stress. Like, where do you go? I
Sure.
don't know how they do that. I should have asked
I
him
don't
that when I
either.
was
Yeah.
there. But anyway,
Please do.
yeah, right? Like, because he's like,
I'm
yeah, I was
interested.
on this mission for 8 hours. And I was like, oh, first thing I thought of, because you know me.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a big deal because the stress is a distractor, and it's also a third in your mind. It creates static, right? So if you're not dealing with those things, if you're not dealing with that stress or that thing that creates the static or that third in your mind, then you don't deal with things in the present moment or that are happening now the appropriate way, right? So stress is actually a third that hurts you psychologically, it hurts you physically.
Hurt your relationship.
Yeah, it hurts everything. It's internal and external, is what we're saying, right?
Right.
Let's talk about some ways to deal with it. I mean, the obvious is to deal with it, right? Identify it, number one, and then
Identify
deal
it.
with the issue that's causing it.
Right. And just go back to what we were talking about earlier, which is get yourself under control, which is, choose to not let it affect you. But what does that mean? Ask yourself those questions.
Well, we say that, and I say that too, right? And I have all these tools now.
Right.
We're studying this. We have lots of people that are helping us, lots of consultants that are helping us right now, and I have all these tools.
Right.
But you have to practice it.
Right.
And we all know, especially like with a relationship or a job change or any of those things we talked about, it comes up.
Yeah.
And you have to rewire your brain to not do that.
Right.
Well, some people will get on social media, and you're hiding from it.
Well, but that causes more stress because we're
It
going to talk
does.
about social media.
We are going to talk about
Yeah.
social media, but that's there's the things not to do, and one of the things not to do is hide from it.
Right.
Right. Or do things that could create more stress, like drink. Which is a huge depressant, or drugs, God forbid, or whatever.
Right, right.
Those things are going to be negative things that are going to make it worse. Versus, talking, counseling,
Right.
going for a walk, going outside, taking your shoes off. I read this thing. I read a book.
Exercise.
I read a book the other day, and first time in my life actually, from cover to cover. No, I kid you not.
Wow.
And a lot of the book was about self-care, and it was about, you can simply take your shoes off and go walk out in the grass and just stand there
Grounding.
and soak it in.
It's the best.
Yeah. Of course I didn't do that, but I was in Sedona by myself.
That would have been the best place to take your shoes off.
Well, I don't know. There's Rocky.
Oh.
So, I was in Sedona and I was by myself, and I was like, man, I sat by this creek and just the water, I filmed it and put it on social media.
That's okay.
And so one of the people on social media
I enjoyed
goes,
it.
well, I'm glad. One of the people on social media, she responds back and she's like, hey, wouldn't it be amazing if now you got rid of your social media? And I was like, I guess it would be, wouldn't it, right? Instead of being, you know what I'm saying, like managing my stress and being present in that
Right.
moment and appreciating all that I had and have and being grateful and all those
Right.
kinds of things.
Well, something you said too made me just think that sometimes people manage their stress by checking out and not dealing with what's going on,
Like
which then causes
social media,
more stress.
watching TV.
Yeah, because they actually might have something they need to deal with and manage, and they're
Sure.
like, "Oh, that's too much," and push it aside.
Yeah.
And then that just makes it mount.
Yeah.
And the little pebble becomes a giant rock or boulder.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. Like that snowball just keeps continuing
Yeah.
to build. The other thing that I noticed too is in doing that and being alone, for the first time in my life, I'm actually like alone.
Sure.
And that causes some stress. That's some anxiety, I have to admit, that you need to manage, that I need to manage. And in doing that, I find myself doing, sitting by the creek, reading a book. And I'll say that for me, and I don't know if this is correct for everybody because this is new territory for me, but if I watch a movie, that's like disconnecting. If I read a book, that's like super grounding for
Yeah,
me.
it's active.
It's active. I'm
have to be present.
engaged. I'm concentrating on the words. It's creating thought. It's really, really, really impactful. And I've read, don't get me wrong, I've read books before. I've just never like sat and read cover to cover. Like, hey, I'm going to read this whole thing, even the foreword and everything.
Right.
But it was really, really, really powerful. The other thing that's interesting for stress is physical activity.
Yes.
Because it creates endorphins.
It does.
There's not going to be a negative from that, right? It's healthy. It's heart healthy. It's good for your mind.
Right.
It reduces stress. It makes you feel better, makes you look better. Being outside, you're absorbing vitamin D from the sun.
Vitamin D, yeah.
You take your shoes off or whatever meditation thing is. I still haven't figured
Sure.
that out. Or you go stand in the grass or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's a big, big deal. I go to this gym, and there's my ex-girlfriend actually got me involved in it. And I thought at first, I'm like, this isn't going to be all that hard, right? It's going to be kind of goofy. And I started doing it. I really, really, really like it. And I like it because there's people that are like-minded like me. They want to be fit. They like physical activity. They like to work out. It's a quick, no BS type of a workout. And, you can't have your phone there, so there's no thirds. You're talking, you're interacting with people, so you're actually present. And it's this group of people, and it's super fun. And that reduces my stress every morning. I try to go in the morning. Sometimes I have to go in the evening, but that's a great way to start your day with physical activity, and doing things like that.
Right.
And it's huge, man. It really makes a difference. Now, the endorphins aren't solving the problem, but it's helping you manage it so that you can think clearly.
Well, and they counteract what's going on in your system.
Sure. It's going to make you more healthy. It's going to make you healthier. But remember that the things that you're doing to manage your stress they're not fixing the problem.
Right, they're a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
Or not a Band-Aid, but they're definitely leading in the right direction, and they are more helpful than hurtful.
Right.
But if there's something that you need to get a hold of, there's something you need to get a hold of.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. And stress is I don't want to. We're really trying to not talk about our personal stuff, right?
Sure.
And be more general, so it applies to everybody. It's not like this isn't going to be Scott and Shelley's life story.
Right.
That's going to be for the guests on the show.
Yeah.
The thing that's important though is to remember that there's always going to be stressors in your life. There's always going to be something going on, and it goes back to truth, and it goes back to self-worth, and it goes back to being present and being aware that hey, this is an issue. And the other thing too is that I think all of these shows come together in that saying no. Sometimes you got to say no, and you know why you do that? So you don't have stress.
Right.
So you don't deal with BS.
Well,
right?
so you're not overwhelmed. And
Yeah. Or exactly
it's
that.
just all the things that cause stress, which is being overwhelmed, being overworked, being overtired, being overtaxed.
Those are all not having boundaries.
Right.
Those are all not having self-worth to have a boundary. Like, hey, that's not going to work for me. I don't have time for that right now.
Not choosing yourself.
Correct.
That's what's an indication.
Yeah, and one of the things I heard some feedback was that, hey, this isn't all about you. And I started thinking, not me specifically, but it's not always all about you as a person.
Right.
Right? And I start thinking about that, and I'm like, no, it is. It is all about you. You know why? Because if your brain isn't dialed in, if you're not wired right, if you don't have your stuff together, how can you be effective in anything else in your life?
Right.
Right? And we talk about being alone. That's a huge deal.
It is.
That's one of the hardest things I've ever done. And I am doing now. It's hard.
Right.
Super transparent, super upfront.
And,
but I'm being truthful with myself. But the other thing, too, is that as I learn self-love and I practice it, it makes me, I don't want to say powerful, but pretty damn powerful.
Empowered, yeah.
Because things don't affect me outside of me.
Yes.
Right? I'm becoming a better father. I wasn't a bad dad before. I think my life was very abundant, and I'm super grateful for it. I'm just saying that now I appreciate it more. I'm happier. I'm more present. I change how I communicate. It's really, really a cool thing. And it changes your vibration. It changes, and that's not a woo-woo thing, but that's energy. That's how you feel about yourself is how other people are going to feel about you. And how you treat yourself is how other people are going to treat you. And that reduces stress.
Well, I think people, just your point on the about making it about you, and people who have the perspective that means it's about you,
Right.
They see self-care as vanity, and it's only because that's how they were conditioned. But it's not; it's sanity, and self-care is like keeps you in that place of quote sanity, which is just like this is me, this is my mindset. I'm in control of me.
Right.
That affects my life, and that keeps everything from externally impacting me. So that's where I keep my shit
And
together.
keeping yourself in check too at that same time, right? There's the vanity, right? I mean, like I'm losing my hair. And I thought the other day, I'm like, they got these plug things for, it's $10,000. But I was thinking, oh man, I can have hair. And then I was like, does it really matter? Does it really matter to me? Why would I do that? Would I do that because I think it would help, like my self-esteem, or like why? And I was like, no. The only reason why I'd ever do that is because I worry about what other people think of me, and I don't really care. Because I have self-worth, right? So asking yourself why is important. If, that house or that car or those things external of you, that is vanity. I think the difference there, I know the difference there is that your internal self-worth isn't associated with like a look or, you know, how big your whatever eyelashes are, or your arms are, or whatever it is, you know. But I do think that self-worth, like you can make yourself feel good, like with clothes, and you know, we both take a shower and I'm wearing deodorant, I don't smell, right? That's self-worth because I value myself and I value my appearance, but not in a fake way. And is that making sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think asking yourself why you're doing something to make sure that that's a healthy decision. And I'm not saying if somebody has a toupee or they get hair implants or whatever,
Right.
that's maybe a healthy decision for them. And just right now, it's not for me because I wouldn't be doing it for the right reasons.
Well, and it's those who don't practice self-care because they believe in putting themselves last. I think if they're people pleasers, and which is fine to be someone who likes to please people, but when you do it at the expense of yourself, then they see someone practicing self-love, self-care. They see that as vanity.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be something that's physical. They just
Right.
see it as vanity and self-absorbed
For sure.
behavior. So that can be.
I
an
was
issue.
just thinking, you know, we as a group are pretty social. When you're stressed, it affects your energy, and it affects how you interact with people. It affects the words you use, how you say them, how you look, how you carry yourself, all those different things. And when you're not stressed or when you're managing it, it's such a different deal.
Right.
It's so different.
Right.
Back to that example we just used about, you know, how you look. It's not really how you look, it's how you carry yourself. And if you're not stressed, you know, you're a happier, more vibrant, smiling person.
Yeah.
And that is a huge difference. And we're going to go to this thing, this millionaire mingle thing,
Yeah.
right? It's a fundraiser Saturday. And I've invited a bunch of people. You're going to come. Never mind. I won't ask you about that guy. But sorry. The point being, though, is that you know, we plan for something like that. We're going to get to see and witness a whole bunch of different interactions. And one of the things that I was thinking is, as we go to these events, I realize, like, it's not always the prettiest girl that's the most attractive, or the prettiest guy that's the most attractive. It's how they carry themselves, and how happy they are, and how they communicate, and the words they use, and the energy. It's huge. And I notice that more and more and more, that looks matter. They matter. You have to say that. I mean, let's be honest. Looks matter. Like a really good-looking guy or a really good-looking girl, I mean, it matters, right? That's initial, like, whoa.
But from the perspective of stress, that's where the resting asshole face and the resting bitch face comes from, right? So if someone is stressed, you can see it on their face.
Oh yeah,
immediately.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
So
100%.
if you're in a room or you're at a party or you're at an event and there's like 20 people, and you can go around and go stress, right?
Yep. And then the person that's like, woohoo, you know.
You're like, wow, that
yeah,
person,
they're having fun. Let's go hang out
they're
over
a
there.
little drunk or they're very happy. Right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm usually,
Yeah.
Anyways, but my point is that, right? It's how you're interacting and the, you know, how you interact in a business environment.
Sure.
You know, like Brian was saying earlier, and knowing like what is going to stress you out.
Yes.
Like we talked about the corporate environment, and knowing your personality and knowing who you are and what you enjoy or don't enjoy, you can make choices to not put yourself in situations where you would be stressed. Sure. And that goes back to the choice, right? But then also managing it as you go is super, super important.
Really quick on managing it, and I shared this with you the other day. Mel Robbins has this trick, because I know people get in situations where it's like all of a sudden, like your day is out of control, or like, you know, 20 things come at you at one time, and your heart rate goes up, and you just feel like you just like are losing it, right? So Mel Robbins has this trick, and I was watching this the other day, where it's like just like controlling, you know, getting a hold of your vagus nerve and putting your hands on your heart and just breathing slowly, and you do self-talk, and you just get to a quiet place and you tell yourself, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved. And you do that over and over and over until you can bring yourself down. And you keep doing it until you bring yourself down. Because you usually are up here when you feel like you need something, but we don't have rescue things. You know, we don't have rescue techniques. You know, some people, you know, get on Apple Watch and breathing, you know, you do the rings and, you know, all the tricks. But then when we're in those moments, we forget those things.
You do.
So if we have a list of go-tos when it's like stress management, I need a rescue.
You create a habit.
Have a few,
Yeah,
exactly.
you can create a habit.
So, breathing is one, this one is one. There's another one that I have used with clients, which is, and same thing, it's related to meridians, is you hold each of your fingers for 1 minute, one at a
Like
time.
my whoopee?
No, it has to be your finger because it's pulsing. So you would do it for 1 minute, which we're not going to sit here for 5 minutes, and just breathe and hold your finger for 1 minute. And then you go to the next finger for 1 minute and the next finger for 1 minute. And then you get to the palm of your hand and you do this for 1 minute. That's a 6-minute process and you are completely deflated down.
Seriously?
Stress is gone.
I never heard of that. That's cool.
It just lowers your blood pressure, it brings you down, and grounds you. So we need techniques, I think, and people don't have them in general. So those are just a few tips that I think can help us in like a stress moment when you're feeling yourself just losing your shit.
Yeah, no, I think so too. Or you just hold on to your
Your
Sharpie.
whoopee, yeah.
I mean, I think it's funny. I
Tends to
love
work
it.
for
Like this
you.
just chills me out. I don't know why, but like holding this,
It works
just
for
like,
you, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So the other thing is activities. We talked about working out. Cycling is huge. And it's funny how when you find these things that help you chill and get whatever you want to call it, zen or grounding, or you take your shoes off and walk. But when I cycle on the road, the tires on the road and the air going through the wheel makes me, it's incredibly soothing. It's unbelievable. It's better sometimes than listening to music. You can feel like the cars go by and you can feel the wind and you can hear like that. Whoa, it's so cool. It's so amazing. The other thing that I just started doing new is going to yoga. I'm not a yoga, I never thought that I'd ever be into that. It is amazing, man. You walk in that room and I don't know what they do, if they put like some sort of chemical in the air or whatever, but I'm like, oh, so cool.
You're like,
It's like,
yeah.
and it sounds,
It's
but it's so
amazing.
cool. And then I've been doing Pilates.
Yeah.
I go on Tuesday nights, right?
Yeah.
And not every Tuesday night, but sometimes. And they have this like fascia thing. Did I tell you about this? Where you like roll a ball on your foot,
Yeah.
and I'm the only guy in there.
Well, and I mean the reflexology in general, though, anything that has to do with
huge, man.
the
It's
points on your pressure
huge.
points on your feet is
It's
amazing.
a big deal.
It's a big deal.
So I'm rolling this ball around and I'm doing this thing and I'm with all these ladies and we joke around and they're all married and like had kids and some retired or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's one of the coolest things.
Good.
And they have this they lower the light in the room and they have like this kind of blue LED light around it, so it's all chill.
Yeah.
And we're all talking and then we're rolling this ball around our foot and it's cool. It's like super relaxing.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing is that's like a huge stress reducer. And it's funny how too, you carry stress like in your body.
Yes.
Like you get tense.
Yes, it's a house for stress.
It's a house, right? And your muscles get tense, and that's why people get massages, or they go to a chiropractor, or they get a foot massage, or they go get a pedicure because they rub your feet there, whatever.
Sure.
I've done that.
Yeah.
Or a manicure or whatever. Like those are self-care things that help manage that stress,
I think part of it too, as you're talking about this, is that sometimes as we hold on to our stress or as stress comes up, we allow our egos to stand in the way. And we tell ourselves what we can't or shouldn't do to solve our stress, work through stress, realize the stress, identify, and make a solution or create a solution. Because our ego is in the way, and I can't do that. Oh, that's not manly, or what would people think, or no matter who we are.
Right.
And we need to get our ego the heck out of the way.
It's funny. I just realized it popped into my head that we were talking to Destry Abbott about what he does for stress, and remember we were talking after he left the show. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to go for a ride."
Yeah.
And he actually did. He I saw it on his social media or whatever, and he, you ride off and he goes and sits on a mountain and like chills out.
Yeah.
And I just realized the biggest stress reducers are usually when you're by yourself. I just realized that.
Yes.
Even yoga, even though you're in an environment where there's other people, you're still on your own mat. You're not conversing.
You're in your own breathing.
Yeah, you're doing your own thing. And
Same
even
thing with
in
meditation.
it seems like a lot of times you always end up in your own space.
Yes.
And that is so incredibly healing and so incredibly impactful because you actually think things through and you're like, oh, wow. Like that's why,
You have
wow.
to get
You
quiet.
get that enlightenment or you get that idea or you get that self-awareness that,
Sure.
okay, here's what's really going on.
Right.
And
or
it helps you.
Or the answers to your problems.
Yeah, it helps you, meditation, those types of things.
Sure.
And that's a big deal. But It did. It just popped into my head. I'm like, oh, well, most of the things that really relieve stress are when you're alone.
Yes.
You know, so there's a big benefit to being by yourself
Right.
sometimes. You know, just taking some alone time, go for a walk around the block, or
Right.
you know, whatever it is. So.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
powerful stuff, super powerful stuff.
Yeah.
But managing it is critical, and you know, recognizing that stress can come from a subconscious or conscious, you know, effect or mindset.
Right.
And you know, if you're stressed out all the time, those three whys is critical, because it could be from something that you haven't dealt with.
Right.
You know, a traumatic event, a situation, a relationship,
Person.
yeah, whatever it is, but it goes right back to, okay, let's hard stop this
Right.
and ask ourselves why.
Right.
And that's one of the things I want to talk about, because you know, this reading now, this new hobby I have. I used to watch YouTube a lot, right? And I'd listen to like podcasts all the time, and I listen to when I go to sleep, and I find it soothing. It's knowledgeable. You learn a lot of stuff, you know, the Dispensers of the world and all that kind of stuff, and they're just so knowledgeable and such smart people that you learn so much, and you can relate it to your life. And then for me, I can put it into, you know, my own words and understand it and
Sure.
help other people. But you know, in doing that, I realized like there's something called a hard stop, you know, and we use that in business a lot, and even in the fire department, like where if you see a safety issue or something where somebody could get hurt, it's like a hard stop. Everybody's like, okay, let's stop and reevaluate. And that's something that can be applied in mental health too, and in your relationships. Like, hey, like we're getting stressed, we're starting to fight, hard stop, hard stop. You know, like it's almost like a safe
It's
word.
like a timeout. Yeah.
Yeah.
A safe word. Yeah.
Safe, like, hey man, hard stop.
Captain Crunch.
Let's interesting. Let's like stop and reevaluate, or take a break for 10 seconds,
Yeah.
or whatever it is, but hard stop, man. And you know,
Because the answer isn't more of what we're doing.
no, and
Ever.
it's not, you know, looking back on the past stuff, or we're talking about, you know, like a move or a job change or all these different things that we talked about. And that's a time to like, okay, hard stop. Like there's three big things happening right now that are creating stress and anxiety for me. Like we need to hard stop this, and I need to figure out what's up. Like, hang on a second.
Sure.
And even if that means taking a day off of work, or, you know, telling your spouse, your partner, like, hey man, you know, I need to talk. And this is all shit that I should have done before, right? But
Yeah.
now I have the tools in my toolbox, and I can change and I can grow
Right.
and all those things. And as we keep saying, full transparency, you know, you're not going to do this every day, but hopefully at some point you can be like, all right, hard stop. Let's evaluate what's up.
But if you can become 1% better every day,
Yeah.
imagine if that compounds by the end
In
of the
100
year.
days, you're like 100%.
Yeah, by the end of the year, where are you? It's way better
It's
than
huge, yeah.
becoming 1% worse or staying where you are.
Yeah.
You're going to be either at ground zero or you're going to be worse.
Yep. The other thing that I want, you know, it's important too, is the food that you eat. And I'm not a dietitian. I'm not trying to go that way. But if you're stressed and you have 4 cups of coffee, that's not going to help.
Right. Or that's all you have all day.
Right. That's not like a good plan. Or, you know, I honestly, I drink 2 energy drinks every morning. And it actually calms me down, kind of, to be honest with you. It wakes me up, it makes me aware, and it calms me down. It's almost like this weird kind of like Wolf of Wall Street thing, where like I'll have an energy drink and then I'll work out and chill myself out, and then I'm done working out, I'll have another energy drink. And then I go into the office, you know, I go to work. And it's important to remember that, you know, what you're putting in your body is important too. It's not just the external stuff, it's not just your mind, but it's the fuel you're giving yourself too. You know, if you're going to eat a bunch of sugar and cake.
I could go into a lot of stuff about sugar. but
Yeah, right? I mean, and there's all kinds of different beliefs, like, you know, if you're vegan, or if you're, you know, all these different things. But that's something to evaluate too, that it could be a dietary issue, it could be a medical issue.
Yeah.
It could be a bunch of different things, maybe not even related to your mental health, right? Like stress can come from other things too.
Or just it can magnify what the events are that are going on around you,
Yeah.
your circumstances, where
Yeah.
maybe things really aren't that bad,
Right.
but because of what your system is, because
Right.
of what you are feeding your body,
Yeah.
it's like stuff is super wonky.
Yeah. Can we talk about your deal real fast? Because that's a
Yeah.
stress, right?
Yeah.
So the other day you fell down. You told me you fell down the other day.
I did fall
And you
last
hurt
week.
your bum.
I did hurt my bum last week.
And it's stress, like, right?
It is
We came in
stress.
today and you can't really walk that good.
I'm having
and
trouble.
You're sitting on a donut.
I
No, I'm
can't
just
work
kidding.
out.
Right.
I'm definitely in pain.
Yeah,
And
that's a stress.
just the whole thing, like the stress of not working out is
Right.
like, as you know, somebody who's active and you do something every day, that's causing me some stuff. So now I'm like, okay, what can I do?
Yeah.
Okay, I can lay on the floor. I can do my dumbbells, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I'm talking myself through stuff.
Right.
And trying to do something so that I can kind of keep endorphins going and
Right.
kind of feel like I'm still engaged, but then also trying to move in a way where I'm not
Yeah.
raising my pain level, which is raising my stress level.
Yeah. Injuries create stress too.
Yes.
Or you're, like God forbid. I mean, Destry was talking about the other day. He has cancer.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know when it's going to be over. You know what I mean? And that's a stress. So some things you can't control.
Unknowns.
You can't fix that. But again, how you react to it, right? But like that stress, you falling down. You were decorating or something. You said, right?
Putting stuff away in the garage. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, what are you going to do? That's not something. You weren't drunk. You weren't like
No.
doing something stupid.
No.
You were like
Lost-
decorating your house or
yeah,
whatever
and I
for the
missed a
holidays.
step,
Or,
yeah.
And it's interesting how.
But to your point on not knowing, when I had my doctor appointment yesterday,
That was a stress before you went.
She's like, well, if it's this, it could be 3 months.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with that?
Yeah.
And I had to give myself 5 minutes to think about what I would do with that.
Yeah.
And then not think about that anymore.
Right.
And put myself in, nope, I'm going to be fine.
It's interesting you said that because I was right. I think I talked to you briefly on the phone.
Yes.
Then I talked to my buddy Scott on the phone, and I was like, "Hey, dude, what are you doing?" Because he wanted to know when the video was going to come up because he's like all anxious.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know, it'll probably be up Friday or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
don't get your panties in a wad or
Yeah,
whatnot.
calm down.
And we're talking. I was like, what are you doing? And he goes, oh, I'm getting a radiation pill for my thyroid. And I was like, oh, dude, are you okay? And he's like, oh, no, it's no big deal. He goes, it's just a little thing. They just like think it's this or this. He goes, it's not cancerous. He goes, I'm sure it's nothing. It's not a big deal. But I was like, well, it kind of is since you just said that. You know what I mean? Like, you cool? You want me to come hang out with you? He's like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, but it's interesting to hear how people, process those things because that is a little bit of a stress too. And in the back of your mind, you're like, shit, I just took a radiation pill, which is a big deal. And, I could potentially have an issue with my thyroid. Well, that's a little bit of a stress too.
Sure.
And he's managing it by, hey man, I'm okay, I'm good. Hey, thanks for calling. I text him later, I'm like, hey, are you cool? Stuff like that. Just having that helps with stress too, like people to support you.
Yeah.
Like I asked about your doctor's appointment. Yes, I texted you about your doctor's appointment. Like, hey man, how'd it go? Like, you cool or what?
Yeah.
Actually, honestly, I was worried if you were going to make it to the show because I need somebody to talk to. But I'm teasing. But
You can't talk to a chair.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you probably could.
I could. But that support system is cool too. Like, hey, how you doing today? Like, how's your day
It's
going?
important.
Or whatever. Those are all cool things.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, it's necessary. And that's part of stress too is, I know like choosing to be alone is one thing, but then having a support system no matter what. And knowing, I think,
Who you choose to have around
knowing people love you, knowing you have people to love.
Love yourself. Yeah.
I've seen this quote before, and I don't know how true it is, but it takes 4 hugs a day to survive, 8 hugs a day for maintenance, and 12 for growth. So if you're by yourself, imagine, and I know, you have a son, and I'm like, I can go days and not see my grandkids or, whatever. And it's like, so what do you do with that? It's an interesting concept. And it's like, you really have to love yourself. And, it's like, is this a hug? I guess this is a hug.
You go to Circle K.
Yeah,
Let
so what do
people
you,
know.
what do you do with it? So it's like, that's literally why I'm a hugger. So when I see
cool.
people, it's like I meet people, I'm like, nope, we're going to hug. And, Mel Robbins, it was like, again, this is where I saw all this stuff of hers, and she has her new book, The High Five Habit. And she wrote a book because of this situation she went through where she was at rock bottom. And one day she just like was looking in her bathroom mirror and she was like, okay, my life is shit right now. And she high-fived herself in the mirror. And that's what changed
cool.
everything for her because she's like, when you do that, the act of high-fiving, it's like everybody knows that that's like just like a positive endorphin, all that stuff. But it's like, I guess I could high-five myself in the mirror.
That's
It's
interesting
like, why
you said that
not?
about
I
the
talk
hug
to
thing.
myself in the mirror. But the 4 hugs, 8 hugs, 12 hugs, think about that. And
Hey,
make that a goal.
Cameraman Dave, did you get a hug?
Gonna need Dave.
He didn't get a hug.
But-
The sound guy Brian didn't get a hug. I dn't get a fucking hug.
Well,
But that's
'cause
cool though.
I went to put my stuff
That
down.
would have been 3.
I was in pain.
Yeah, that'd
I
have
went
been
to put
3
my stuff
hugs.
down.
I'm just saying.
I'm hugging
Yeah,
after this.
yeah.
But it's just interesting that so many people who are alone, a lot of people don't have the awareness that is a thing, and that does raise their stress level.
Yeah, no, I totally get
It's
it.
definitely a cause. They don't have to have job loss, this, that, the other, loneliness. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
And how you look at with the perspective of being alone. Yeah.
That's cool. That's good. I appreciate that. Lots of good insights.
Yeah.
Everybody, thank you again for watching The Knot. Shelley Netco, Scott Freymuller. Hope everybody has a great day. Thank you.